What's up, guys? Today I am in Mexico and we're gonna go over which is a better place to live as a digital nomad, Bali or Mexico. I'm with my sister-in-law,
Karina.
and she's lived in both. You've spent a lot of time in Mexico as a digital nomad. I've spent a lot of time in Bali as a digital nomad, and I've spent a little time in Mexico. You spent a little time in Bali. So today we're going to talk about the 5 factors to think about when deciding which one. So the first one is Wi-Fi.
Yes, Wi-Fi is super important for a digital nomad, and especially stable Wi-Fi. So even if there's storms or lots of people using the Wi-Fi, it's very important that it's a stable Wi-Fi the whole time.
In Bali, usually actually there was a couple co-working spaces that had insanely fast internet, like a lot faster than you'd find in places in the US. But yeah, when there's a storm, sometimes the power goes out, sometimes the Wi-Fi goes out. A lot of times they have backup generators if it's a good co-working space, so that's definitely an important factor to think about, especially if you're gonna have Zoom calls and things like that,
Right.
and you can't afford for you to just be offline.
Yeah.
How about Mexico?
So for me, I've stayed mostly in Airbnbs, and they've had decent, good enough internet. You know, I upload videos online, YouTube, and it's worked pretty fine. I wouldn't say that it's been the fastest, but it's good enough.
Number 2 is beaches. So let's talk about beaches in Bali. A lot of people don't know this, but Bali is not the place to go for beaches. The beaches are usually a little bit run down, definitely not the best for swimming. It is an amazing place for surfing, but Bali has a lot of other attributes that I love, that I go, but if you're a real big beach person, you want to sit on the beach all day, you know, Bali's definitely not the place for that.
Yeah. Also, if I remember correctly, Bali has dark sand, which, you know, aesthetically is not as pleasing, and Mexico has beautiful beaches with white sand. So I think aesthetically it's just more beautiful if you're looking for a nice beach place.
Oh yes, and this might be a good time to talk about any biases we have.
Yeah, so I must acknowledge that I'm biased for Mexico because my family is from Mexico and I come here quite often, and I've said I spend more time here, so I think that definitely has an influence in making my decision. So I do acknowledge that, but Bali is still a great place for digital nomading.
Yeah, and I think you can't deny what you said about the beaches. White sandy beaches, you know, it's a reason they're known to be famous. So the third one is the food. So I'm a big fan of Bali because I love how many different cuisines they have on the island. Most of the food is actually grown on the island, so you can literally taste the freshness when you're eating the food in Bali. It's especially good, you know, I'm not a vegetarian, but when I am in Bali, I tend to eat mostly vegetarian because it's a highly vegetarian vibe. I mean, they make the most incredible vegetarian dishes that you don't even think about it. I mean, meat is really an afterthought in Bali, and it also just sits well with the weather. When you're in a tropical, you know, place, you just want less carbs, less meat, you just want more fresh, kind of fresh ingredients. So yeah, but you also got to experience food in Bali, so talk about that first.
So I would agree with you because I am vegetarian, so the options there are great for vegetarians, and the food feels very fresh, organic, and so I really appreciate that as, you know, being a vegetarian. Here in Mexico, you'll also have fresh fruits, fresh avocado, which is really great, but it tends to be more meat-heavy Mexican cuisine, and depending on where you stay, there might be more Americanized Mexican food, so it's less authentic. Of course, you know, that depends where you're staying.
Yeah, and I will say, you know, obviously I've had some incredible Mexican food in Mexico, but it does tend to primarily be Mexican food. When you're in Bali, you won't find much Mexican food, and if you do, it won't be that good, but you will find a good variety of different cuisines, so that's one thing I like about that. So it kind of just depends. If you love Mexican food, then, you know, obviously you want to be here, but when it comes to cuisine, both are pretty dang good, and I would say, I agree, the best, most freshest avocados I've had here in Mexico. The fourth is gonna be the culture. So in Bali, Balinese culture is super beautiful. It's very like into spirituality.
Yes.
You learn about their rituals. Even the half moon and the full moon, they have like the community all comes together for religious ceremonies, and it's really beautiful. And that permeates across the digital nomad culture. So I love that. I've learned so much about their culture, their religion, and for me, it's nice growing up in North America because it's different. It's unique. It's something that I haven't been very exposed to before. So love the culture in Bali. And I also love the culture in Mexico. It's super family oriented, which I absolutely love. The people here are super warm, considerate, very hardworking, and just very nice, really nice people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And there's the stereotype that Mexico is dangerous. Of course, that's true, unfortunately, but it also depends where you're going, and a lot of these touristy places tend to be safer. And you're right, like the culture, you'll see culture everywhere you go in Mexico, and such a variety of cultures too. Like if you go to Mexico City, that's a different culture than if you go to more indigenous place like Oaxaca.
Mm-hmm.
So you do get a wide variety of cultural activities down here, and the spiritual aspect is also very true here, where it's influenced the digital nomad community, because there's all these pre-Hispanic rituals that people are really embracing, like doing the temazcal, burning incense. There's so many of them, including also like plant-based medicine. It's becoming very popular here in Mexico as well.
Wow. And on that note, there's community to talk about as well. So the community of digital nomads in Bali is quite diverse. I mean, you get people from Australia, a lot of people from America, Europe, and then of course other parts of Asia. And a lot of times it's like computer programmers, it's people who work in marketing, but it's also like entrepreneurs, CEOs. I mean, I met some people who are CEOs of companies in Europe, and they're in their 20s or 30s, and they just said, yeah, I can run my company from Bali, so I'm going to spend my time in Bali. What do you make of the community, the nomads here in Mexico?
Yeah. I think there's a few spots where you'll find a lot of them, especially Tulum, here in Puerto Escondido. There's some of them in Mérida, Yucatan. So there's hubs, and you'll find something similar. I think mostly Americans, because we're so close to the border. So you do see a lot of Americans, but you'll also see Europeans down here, and they just love the culture, the beaches. So there's a wide variety of community, and I think that it's so important for you to reach out. So finding a community, I think, goes back to the individual, like making those relationships with people, not being intimidated or afraid or embarrassed to talk and reach out to people.
And then the last one is going to be costs. So cost is pretty interesting. I think in Bali, at least before the pandemic, you could get like a room within a kind of a hotel or a apartment complex for about $400 to $500 per month, and that was walking distance to the ocean. Your average meal could cost anywhere from $1 to about $5-6, depending on how fancy you get. And then you usually get around on a motorbike, which costs again $50 to $100 per month. So overall, it's a super affordable place, and that's one of the reasons, of course, people love to go. How about Mexico? How would you compare the cost?
Mexico is probably a little bit more expensive than Bali. A room here, for example, in this Selena We Live type of space, rooms are about 2,000 pesos, which is about $100. And meals, it depends where you're staying as well. Like Tulum is very pricey, very expensive to rent as well as to eat out.